I just told you about the meeting.
Okay.
All right, well, we can get started. Go up here, get my screen shared. I was going to start by asking y'all if you guys have any experience, could be anything, with any sort of like AI software, ChatGPT.
I had AI write the hog slot letter. You guys remember that when we had some issues, and I had, I had it like I put in like our scenario in ChatGPT, and like it wrote that letter, and then I just kind of scanned it and changed it to sound like it was from me.
Okay.
Yeah. And I know I've had customers asking for differences in bend radius on like dynamic versus static.
Okay.
I asked ChatGPT and then I just copied and pasted the whole damn thing to the customer.
Okay.
It was pretty much perfect.
I have
Rod or Katie?
No, I have no.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll start pretty simple. Jim asked me, how do we ask questions to it? So I was just going to start with one I actually used last week.
On ancient civilizations?
So we'll start here. This is just say, I get off the phone with the customer. Here's a question I have when I don't have y'all's sales experience. I don't necessarily use this, but this is just the possibilities. Starting here, but we're going to go through like how to prospect. I haven't nailed down exactly how to perfect it, but I'm going to show you how you can use layman's terms questions, and you can also you have to give it, you can give it customer information of how you're trying to prospect, what you're trying to sell, and it'll help you get better prospects. So for example, here's just a simple question we asked it about the difference between metal hose and jacketed metal hose. Gives you your answer here. Your key differences. Rod, would you say this is correct?
Used for flexible fluid transfer, while jacketed metal hose is designed for temperature control. Yeah, that first part, structure, jacketed metal hose, addition, outer hose layer for heating, cooling. Yep. Metal hose, general purpose, whereas jacketed, specialized application. Yeah, I would agree with all of that.
Okay. So there's just an example of, so for me, that's a not use the word advanced, but that's something I would not know that I could shoot in here, get a quick answer. I could have a long answer if I wanted to, just for shits and giggles, make this response shorter.
Hey, Kyler.
Sir.
One thing that, could cause confusion there is, for instance, I have a jacketed metal hose that I do for BDI. That's the metal hose. Then it's got an armor guard jacket over it, and then it's got a Kevlar jacket over that. That's considered, quote, a jacketed metal hose in some people's terminology. But a jacketed metal hose that actually has ports on the end that allows you to do temperature control and stuff, that is an accurate description. But there's people out there that might ask for a jacketed hose that doesn't really understand that themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Cause that to be confused.
That's almost like talking to somebody in a different from a different place.
Yeah,
it's like what you're talking about, Rod, is like people call it that, but it's not really that. Like jacketed hose is what it's saying.
Yeah, I just use this. I use this as an example just because I ran into it last week, and I actually just asked Jim the difference, and he gave me a great answer, and that's what I used. But I wanted to use that. I thought that was a good example question to start with, just because it's a really basic question. Anybody can ask that question, and it gives a pretty good answer.
Does.
The good thing about AI is it's not so much like shortcuts for getting this answer. It's the fact that you can manipulate this answer. Like I could say, just take section 2 and put it into short informational email. And like, just to show, takes out your section 2, gives you your email.
Huh.
So that's where this, it's kind of odd. Like all I'm teaching you is just showing you that you enter your messages down here and you can manipulate. It's all about your keywords and your prompts. It's how you prompt it and the keywords you use that's how you get your text out of the AI. So when we transition to prospecting, which we'll do now, someone give me a state and a goal in mind of, how many prospects we want to find, and, just like you're working prospecting, what are we looking for?
How about Tennessee?
Okay.
How ironic is that? Kyler asked me that last week, and I said Tennessee.
How about Tennessee? And I want hose distributors, and I want your kind of your fitting houses, your
Pipe, valve, and fitting?
your pipe valve fitting kind of people.
Okay.
Like your
So
picker.
I'm gonna take pretty much just what you said and try and prospect, and I'm going to show you. I expect it to kind of fail in a sense because we're not giving super specific on who we are and what we're trying to sell, but then we'll give it more information. Help me prospect Tennessee. Hose distributors, fitting houses, pipe, valve, and fitting. That's all we're going to say. We'll start there. So here, it's giving us a little bit more information on number 2. It's showing us where to find it. 1, it's going to tell us what it needs from us in order to prospect best. So this is a lot. It's not important yet, but just take it in just for educational purposes. Yeah. It's telling it to effectively prospect fitting houses, pipe, valve, and fitting companies. You'll want to follow a systematic approach. Here's a step-by-step guide. Not what we were looking for. So we're going to say, I do not want a step-by-step guide.
Kyle, this is an old guy question, I guess. Are you communicating with it from a standpoint of like it gives you something back and you tell it if you want that or not, and then you go back and forth, or do you?
Yeah, it's like a full conversation, man.
Okay, so you're not just rephrasing the first question over again. You're actually
it's not a real person, but it is pretty close to it in the sense of you manipulate the conversation. Like, okay. I could type into this thing for 6 hours and say, go back to the first thing we talked about, and it'll go back to Tennessee prospecting because I started a new GPT for this prospecting.
So what you're typing in is telling it what is wrong or right about what it just gave you on that.
Yeah, I'm going to say, I don't want this. This is telling me basically how I should prospect Tennessee, which this is great information. I mean, you could follow this and you could get great prospects. I mean, ThomasNet, LinkedIn. So I'm just going to say, do not want a step-by-step guide. What information can I give you to help prospect best is what I'm going to ask. And that's a little bit, I kind of know that's where it's going a little, because I don't want to confuse you.
Ask for what possible account names or something like that.
Okay. So it's suggesting target market, geographical focus. We got that. Existing contacts, competitors.
Because I don't want to know the process of prospecting as much as I want to know the names of the prospects.
Correct. And we'll say that.
This is pretty cool and kind of scary at the same time.
For sure.
I can remember. Wow, I remember when like Google search engines came out, and I can remember just like plugging stuff into a search bar and seeing and just mind blown, right? Like, how does it know my phone number?
It's basically Google on steroids.
Rod,
Yeah.
who would you say you're like? Name me a competitor in Tennessee.
Um, a,
Could be
compet-
anybody.
a competitor in Tennessee,
Yes.
Texel.
Texel maybe.
Okay. Okay. I don't want.
I suppose I could use all of our manufacturers' names as well, but
I
They're
don't
not
want to know
competitors.
how to prospect. I want you to find prospects for me. I'm trying to sell custom hose assemblies, including metal, Teflon, and chemical in Tennessee. Texel is a main competitor. So you gotta think like you're building it, you're giving it information to best help you. So the more
Yeah.
information you give it, the better it's gonna, and it takes that from everybody that
Yep.
uses it, and that's how it gets its information. I'll focus on companies that would be potential customers for these products. So I'll consider Texel as a competitor, find suitable alternatives. Based on your request to find potential customers for custom hose assemblies, I have identified several
That's-
companies.
Bananas.
Okay, so here's only 4. Okay, so here we have our 4 prospects, just from what we've entered so far.
Hey, I know you got a rhythm here, Kai. What happens if you took Texel out of that question? One thing that we've done that, when you think about being confusing, we've said we want metal hose and blah 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 and chemical, but you got to remember Texel doesn't do metal or Teflon. So if you're looking for a longer list, that may have confused it too.
Okay, so I'll answer your question and then give you my opinion. I don't think taking Texel out would ever hurt, but you could give it more, and you could tell it what you just told me.
Yeah.
So you're concerned
Also,
we're not
you
covering
can
metal
ask
and
for-
Teflon with these distributors?
Ask for how many?
Uh,
Ask it for like 50, Kai, or 20 or whatever.
I'll just see what it says. Now I'm going to pause it for a second. Can you include phone numbers for these?
Bam.
That's crazy.
that's nuts.
Do you recognize any of these, Rod, other than like Eric's?
I know them all.
Parker.
Rose, Summit, Parker Hannafin, Hydraulic Supply. I've got a call I got to make to them this morning. Yeah.
I know every name they have listed there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you include some smaller shops, such as mom and pop hydraulic houses? And be sure to also include metal hose and Teflon hose buyers. So I just given it more, mom and pop shops, just again, like keyword, like it could not like that. It might like it. And then I also included metal hose and Teflon hose buyers. The purpose of me showing you this is it's not so much like, there's not like a right way to do it. You got to figure out what works best for you, I guess. Cause there's different, like the prompts, just anything, like there's so many different outcomes that it can generate, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So the interesting thing that I'm watching now is like for what you asked it, the first 10 are like places that market everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Now, then it was like the second 10 and the top were spot on.
Yeah, that's why I hit like typed like mom and pop. That's something I found. I messed with this a bunch last week when I was trying to come up with what to show here. And I with the prospecting, I didn't really get good answers until I really hammered away at like just different words and yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, two, you got to remember you're putting in Tennessee. I mean, you could put in Chattanooga, and I mean, man,
Yeah.
I would think it would just.
So it's still going. I'm gonna pause. So I've already done this, but I'm gonna. So at the end of this, you could ask it to put it into a PDF for you. Can you see this?
Yeah.
So all I did with this is say, can you put that information you just gave, and this was last week, different prompt in terms of accounts, but same process. Can you put these prospects into a PDF form for me? Which the real value to this would be putting it into an Excel sheet and then immediately putting it into NetSuite. So you don't have to spend time entering them. But just for purposes of the AI, what it can do. Labels it, here's your prospects with phone numbers, websites. I thought that was pretty neat in terms of what the AI spits at you can be a lot. So the fact that you could kind of tell it, hey, take this section of what we talked about and pull it into this PDF or put it into a CSV, which is like Excel. So that's nice. Let's see. What questions do you have about the prospecting side of things? Like, do you find how this could be beneficial or no? What questions do you have?
Granted.
Same questions I sent. Like,
okay.
What do we do with the information?
I had yours at the end there. I mean, BHS, do we want to leverage it? How do we leverage it? How much time do we give it? Like, it's kind of one big question. I guess I was kind of directing that more towards the group at the end of everything.
Yeah,
that's
why I didn't say anything.
So. I don't have, a ton more to show. I'm kind of relying on the questions. I'd like you guys to put in some.
So basically, I'm seeing a lot of end users there, some of which might be of value for us to call, some of which we might be stepping on the toes of the local distributor. But the bottom line is I could say just show distributors and not end users or whatever. Because you put in a parameter in the question, I think, of who buys these products or whatever, and that's going to definitely give you a lot of end users as well. I mean, it could be thousands.
It is. It's not. I will say it's not a foolproof system by any means. Like, you pull these prospects, there's going to be a couple of them who probably aren't in Tennessee. Like, I had an issue with Arizona. I pulled probably 30. I probably had 5 accounts that were actually from California, which it's really not a detriment because there's still accounts. But it's still a robot. Like, you still have to look and make sure you got to make sure everything's right. It might, especially with what we sell, it's kind of difficult for it to know what hydraulic supply company sells in terms of end user distribution. But I just did it. I mean, you can ask it for just distributors and it could add another filter.
Yeah.
Just think of it this way, guys. I mean, basically you had and you had Google, and I guess you could use ThomasNet. Yeah. But this is so much faster than doing any of those.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and you can just tell it what you want, and it will narrow.
I think another thing is real quick. That's true. It also, people don't understand with the AI. You don't necessarily have to let it generate all the information for you too. It's great for organization because, like, you could see over here on the left, like, this is refreshed recently, but like, this saves everything you talk to it about. You could put in all your current leads and tell it to organize it a certain way, or flip it. Like, you could copy and paste everything on ThomasNet and input it into AI and tell it to pull out what you want it to pull out, on top of having it search the website, if that makes sense.
To me, like, I go to, like, we just took anywhere in the country and we took a very vague hose assembly distributors. Like, I think what you're going to forget, Rod, and because I do, is that you can ask it a question back. Like you just said, well, there's a lot of manufacturers, and that's what you get on Google. You just tell it, no, I don't want that. I want distributors, and those are all distributors.
Yeah.
So like, and then you know, we're just randomly picking a city. Like I think like if I put myself in a salesperson's shoes, I am selling. I'm it's my day to do dials, and I have a map of my territory, and I'm somehow navigating these calls from state to state or location to location, or industry to industry, however you want it to look. So like if I'm like, I'm just coming off the top of my head here, and I'm Jim, and I'm saying, hey, I got a real good customer that's Rollair. How do I find other air compressor manufacturers that use metal hose on their compressor? You know what I mean? Like, I mean, okay, so that would be something that is very like dialed down into the type of customer, well, or you say, hey, I'm familiar with like fluid handling distributors because we used to be one. I'm going to start, I want to market to that in my territory. So let's look up fluid handling distributors in Louisville and see who we get, right? And you're going to just dial it. Like, there's no looking that shit up, right? It's just going to, if you go that detailed, it's going to give you, hey, look that up, Kai. Like, show me fluid handling distributors in Louisville, Kentucky.
I was going to say, if I go down to just Chattanooga, Tennessee or something, instead of Tennessee, you're going to more easily be able to dial it in, because you could say like, Industro,
I mean,
the thing I'm missing, like Jim asked me, this is a little bit off of prospecting, but Jim asked me, like, what's the most effective way for us to reduce our task time? That's a little bit where I struggle with this. I mean, honestly, the real answer is we already do, because Jim has the workflow emails, and that's like the probably the number one in terms of like quote follow-up and stuff like that. That's the number one time reducer in AI. The prospecting, though, I feel like can save time too. I think maybe in the future it'll have more to do with cut and couple than US hose, but I think each salesman can get a ton of good.
Well, I don't think you're right, because one of the things with US hose is branching outside of just hose distributors, going to pipe, valve, and fitting people, looking at possible OEM type manufacturers. And those are, I mean, it's already hard to find just hose distributors, but to find those type of people, it takes it even, a little bit further. And we don't have what do you want to say? We don't have the experience with like pipe, valve fittings. We don't know where to go to find that information besides Google.
I have a prospect I'm now prospecting that I got from this last week that I did not find on ThomasNet or Google. I made them one of my target accounts because I think I'm going to get quotes from them, and I would not have found them if it was not for this. Granted, that's kind of lucky, but they're not all perfect, but there are some good. It does give you some good accounts for sure in terms of the prospecting.
Well, Rod, you gave it some information to get. Brandon, why don't you give Kyler some information to pull a list of prospects in your territory? I just pick one state or whatever. Maybe after you get it out.
What if you did like, I don't mean to interrupt the situation. I'm just thinking like Hog Slat, and you just said like, hey, Hog Slat Inc., whatever, is a customer of ours. Find me other customers that do make similar products.
Say that. Find me a what that makes similar products?
Find me other companies that manufacture similar products. I mean, if like I think about if I'm prospecting in my territory, right? That's what I'm doing. That's finding
like
places.
We've talked about reverse engineering before. It kind of does that, a little bit of that. You can give it that same company.
mean, I don't know where Crystal Spring Hog Equipment is, but I think somebody should be calling them today.
Farmer Boy.
Okay, here we go. Since somebody wants this, put it into a PDF for me.
What I'm kind of saying with that is, instead of just saying, you know, I think we're short-sighting ourselves if we just search a product code in a state. Like, I think you can get down to, I mean, just think where we have success, right? Or where we're and you'll start to dial that in. You'll start to be like, hey, I need to include this, and this in my search. I mean, I don't know, man. That just it to me, like, if we're not using that, I don't know what we're using.
So there's the PDF. Download the PDF, download it, and it's here.
Crystal Spring Hog Equipment.
Okay. So I mean, does everybody feel like you could at least get yourself a list of prospects using this at this point? I mean, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
At least I don't.
Now, do you download an app, you said, for this? Or
No, sir. It is a website, and I can send you the link. And you can sign in with your Gmail, or you can sign in with something else. I can send you a link to do that. Well, Jim put one in the Teams, but I can send you another one. But yeah, I mean, I actually pay $20. I've paid one set of $20 for this, just for the purpose of this, because you do only get so many free messages. You get a ton of them. Like, I use it for school and I use it for work, and I've never had to pay for it. But you do run out of free messages. Is the only kicker I've found so far. And I mean, I know how to teach you guys how to input stuff into this, but I mean, I don't know how to really use this effectively, to be totally honest with you, which is promising because I already feel like I do use it somewhat effectively. If that makes any sense. Like, you can, there's LinkedIn out. I saw something about LinkedIn outreach. I tried to find more on that and I didn't. That's like the prospecting. It's more of this. It'll try to pull like LinkedIn contacts and their job role. So then you can try to find out like who's the buyer without, before you make your first call, if you quickly, without having to dig. Other than that, I don't have much more to share unless someone else has more questions. I mean, Brandon's questions are important. That's more for y'all though. Like, how much time do we give it? I think to be effective, the gym has to have some sort of, system for us sales guys and how he wants us to use it, because it can get distracting, but it can also be super effective if you go into it knowing what you're looking for.
One of the biggest hangups that we have is finding prospects to call. And I think this is about the easiest way possible to find prospects to call.
For sure.
So as a group, that's what I would use it for.
You think that's on the distributor side or the end user side that we have limited?
Both. I got a distributor last week. I mean, they're not a customer yet, but I literally just looked at the top of the list they got for me. It was Southwest Rubber. And I have two. It got me one call from the prospect list on the AA thing, got me 2 contacts. Like, a lot of them are either already customers or maybe in the wrong state if you're really being critical of it, but it gives you some good accounts. And you can give it more. I mean, you can tell it anything you want to in terms of what you're looking for. Again, you're at the mercy of hoping it's accurate.
Yeah, but I mean, just from what you put in there, I mean, that stuff is very accurate. I mean, maybe Crystal Spring Hog Equipment, you got to weed a few out, but I mean, what would be any way that we prospect? So does anybody have a way that we prospect that would be better than this?
I know I don't.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the question, right? Like, if we're not, like, if you're, if you're not prospecting, okay, fine. Like, this may just seem like a waste of time, but if you are, I mean, I just don't know how else you would. I mean, I've done this a little while now, and I can remember, like, when going to the green ThomasNet books in the stamp sales office and opening them up and finding like this is. I mean, if you're, I mean, you know, it's like, okay, well, let's find somebody else like Hogslat. Okay, well, how else?
Even if these aren't true, like to your point, even if these aren't accurate, there's still 7 worth of shots.
It's 1,000 times more accurate than anything else you're going to use.
And it's seconds instead of hours.
Right.
It's really going to be beneficial. I'm trying to figure out how to get. Well, I know how to get it out of here. I'm gonna, say I get 50 prospects. I'm gonna say put it into an Excel sheet for me, and then it's up to me. I got to learn how to get that Excel sheet into NetSuite. That way, I don't cancel out the time I saved prospecting by entering in 50 contacts and leads into NetSuite. Once you can pull that list of phone numbers and accounts out of AI into NetSuite, I mean, you can have, in theory, 50 prospects in 10 minutes. I mean, you're not going to get 50 more the next 10 minutes, but those 50 or 20 are going to be in there.
I think just from someone who I mean, you do something your whole life and it just is like, doesn't make any sense. I think the key here is that you talk back to it. So like, I think if I'm Brandon and I'm like, hey, I got good success with Hogslat. And then I'm like, all right, well, I put this in and I got companies coming up from Brazil, right? Like, that's not I don't like it. It just seems, it's just too what you've got to like, give me people like this in this area, right? You can go back and then, you start to funnel that down and all of a sudden it's like, okay, well, now there's only 3. Yeah, but there are 3 companies like this in the territory that I call on, right? I can focus instead of shooting blanks into the air. I got something in my crosshairs. I've got companies like I'm looking for in the place that I want to call on that are in this demographic. I mean, you can keep going back and having it.
Yeah, it's not a Google search.
That search. It's
kind of like, this is a weird analogy maybe, but it's like a Google search. If you have a song in your head that you can't think of, you can't really Google it and figure out what it is. Like AI takes what you're going to say and it somehow figures out at least the best way to figure out what you're looking for. Like if you search for hose distributors and it's not what you want, you don't have to redo your search. You just tell it exactly what you're thinking and what you wanted to change. Might not work. But that's the thing, is you're supposed to naturally be like, tell it what you need. I wouldn't try as a beginner, I wouldn't try to manipulate it into giving it what you want. I would just tell it what you want. But
Kyler,
I do think it'll help in prospecting.
Absolutely great presentation. If everybody could just, I don't know if everybody got a chance to take a look at it, but if everybody could spend a little bit of time trying to find some prospects to add into your repertoire, that would be awesome.
I've just got to remember, number one, to use it. I mean, not that I'm doing prospecting, but I mean, I could use it for a ton of different. I got to remember to go. So the letter that I did, that I was talking about the example, I literally had it write a letter. Then I took that letter and put it into, I don't know, some other word processing system and manipulated it the way I wanted it. And then it was good. Still saved me a ton of time. I had no idea I could go back and say, no, I want it to be more formal, informal. I didn't know you could have a conversation. I thought like it just spit out like what you get.
Yeah, and I've done that too, JT. Like you can look at it and be like, if you have a certain situation where you need to email a customer, hey, I'm sending I need to send an email to a customer. Basically we screwed up. This is how we're going to fix it, blah, blah, blah. And it will spit it out. And it makes it sound like you're a freaking lawyer almost. I mean, some of it is just phenomenal. Well, and then you can make it more personalized and more whatever.
So that's my problem. Everybody knows I'm not a lawyer, right? So like I like the fact that I can say, hey, make it less formal, right? Because I want them to think it's coming from me. I don't want it to have information that I don't know anything about. It's almost like cheating on a paper in school. It's like, okay, well, that paper was great, but you didn't write it. So I mean, it's like, oh, well, yeah, that's true.
Just put it this way. This is so great that at my son's school now, the high school, when they walk into the classroom, every single classroom, there's a shoe caddy that hangs up on the wall that's numbered. They have to put their phones in there.
Oh yeah.
Because of ChatGPT.
Yeah, sure. I mean,
because it was helping them write papers and answer questions on their test.
They put like a damn force field around Jameson School. Their phones don't like you walk into school and your phone doesn't work. I don't know what the hell that does that. It's like Star Wars.
Well, I appreciate y'all listening. I hope you get a little bit of benefit out of it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah.
Anybody have any questions?
I will, I'm sure, once I start.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like it's just a rabbit hole. Like once you just it can just go keep digging and digging and digging. And then, but it gives you so to me, like it would have taken a lot more time to get some of those answers where it just spits out your answers. You research one or two in an area and then you move on. It's giving you a whole list of them. So I mean, right. My questions are still the same. Like, how do we utilize it? What do we want to do with it? Are we prospecting with it? Are we using it all the time? Like, I just bookmarked it in my thing. Those kind of things.
Yeah. Well, I would use it to prospect. And then if you have like a difficult conversation or something like that, ask it how to word it, at least to start. And hell, there's probably 10 other ways to use it that we'll find later on as we use it.
Does it make any sense, Jim, to have like a thing like where we know as a company we are having success with a market or a company or whatever, since it's so easy,
share it, yes.
Narrow that down and be like, all right, Brandon's having success at Hog Slat. It's a great, it's just in my mind. Not saying we have, do that search, you generate 10 places and be like, hey, Rod, and you can export it, right? Like, here's 2 of these in your territory, and KD here. I know you don't even have a territory. KD, here's 2 of these in your territory, or something to that effect. Like, just you know what I mean? Like, I don't know that you do it every day, but I mean, if you see, if you go like, hey, we really need another roll air, and just find, go in there and spend the 10 minutes it's going to take high end to find in the country the other people that compete with roll air and distribute those out into the territories.
I would say yes, that's awesome. That's a great idea too. But also at the same time, as you're doing this in your own territory and you find keywords and different things that work, share it. Yeah. That Teams channel is a great place to share it.
Yeah.
Because like normally you're going to look for something specific in your territory. But if you see that it works, whatever lingo that you're giving it, send it on the Teams channel.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like that drawing thing we sent out. It's like, that drawing has helped a lot with the one I sent yesterday, the roll air fittings and like exactly how they need to be. I know there's 73 other assemblies we make repetitive that should have a drawing done for it, right? So just a matter of remembering too. It's like it's just a different rhythm than it's new, right? So it's just hard to remember to use it for those things.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we got Lade on the phone by himself, so I think we should wrap her up.
All right.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thanks, Kyler, for the help. Anybody has any questions? Feel free to reach out to Kyler or myself.
Good work, Kai.
Thank you.